So far we have seen two representations for describing a set. First one was writing or listing all the members within curly braces, and the second notation was set builder notation. So sets can also be represented graphically using some diagram called Venn diagram. Let's take an example to see how we can represent a set using Venn diagram. So the example here is that we consider the set V of all vowels in the English alphabet. Now the set V contains A, E, I, O, U, right? Now the objects that are under consideration are the letters of the English alphabet. So here we draw a universe, right? First we draw a universe, it's a rectangle, and the universe contains all the objects under consideration. Here the universe is the set of all letters in the English alphabet. So there are 26 letters, right? So that those letters are the elements in the universe. And now a set is represented using a circle inside this rectangle. So the set we are looking is set V, which has A, E, I, O, U, right? And inside the circle we represent each element of that set using a point. So that's how we represent a set graphically. Now here the universe is represented using a rectangle, right? And the universe contains all the objects under consideration. So basically circles or other geometrical figures are used to represent set, and sometimes points are used to represent a particular element in the set. Okay, so this is how a Venn diagram typically looks like. Now note that there is a difference between these two notations. The first notation means it's an empty set, alright, and the second notation means that it's not an empty set, it's a singleton set where it has one element in it, that is the empty set. So we have to understand that they both are not empty sets. The first one is the empty set and the second one is a singleton set, means that there is only one element in this set. So such sets are called singleton set. So and that one element is the empty set. Alright, so there is a difference between these two, and maybe we can map this way. So suppose consider an empty folder in your file system in the computer. So there is an empty folder, alright, so that can be mapped to an empty set. Fine. Now you have a folder, and within that folder you have another folder, but that is empty. Now this is same as our singleton set within curly bracket writing 5. So did you get that analogy? Now the empty folder is different from a folder which contains an empty folder, right? We have seen a subset of B, right? We have seen what a subset of a set means. So a subset of B, if and only if every element of A is also an element of B, then only we say that a set A is a subset of another set B. Alright, so in other words we can say that A is a subset of B if and only if for all X, X belongs to A implies X belongs to B is true. Okay, now we see how we represent A subset of B using a Venn diagram. Okay, now we represent the universe using the rectangle, and so we represent the set B using a circle. Alright, now we represent the set A as a circle within the circle B. So why? So A is contained in B. That's what A subset of B means. So this is how we represent A subset of B using a Venn diagram. Alright, let's prove a theorem. For every set S, we want to prove that phi is a subset of S and S is a subset of S. So we have already seen that an empty set and the entire set are always two subsets for that set, right? So but we have to prove it. Why so? So why we call a subset of B? How we can call a set A subset of B? So we call as a subset of B if and only if every element of A is also an element of B, right? That's why we call A subset of B. Now we want to prove that why empty set is a subset of set S and why the entire set itself is a subset of that set. Now let's see. So to prove phi subset of S, we will need to show that for all X, X belongs to phi implies that X belongs to S. That is true, right? So we have to show that. So we have already seen that A subset of B if and only for all X, X belongs to A implies X belongs to B is true. So that way we will show that for all X, X belongs to phi implies X belongs to S is true. Now how we will prove it? Alright. So let's see. So X belongs to phi. Consider that statement itself. So x belongs to 5. Is that true or false? So 5 means it's an empty set, right? Empty set means it does not contain any element. So x cannot belong to 5. That is for sure. So x belongs to 5 is always false, which means that the premise or the hypothesis is always false. Now you take a conditional statement, and in that conditional statement the hypothesis is always false. So whether the conditional statement will be true or false? The conditional statement is going to be true when the hypothesis is always false. So this is a similar type of vacuous proof that we have seen before. Okay, so that's how we prove that phi is a subset of S. Alright, now let's prove that S is a subset of S itself. So again we need to prove that for all x belongs to S implies x belongs to S is true. Okay, so here let's approach a direct proof method. So we take an arbitrary x from the domain and we'll prove that the conditional statement x belongs to S implies x belongs to S is true. Because so applying direct proof, we know that we assume the hypothesis is true or the premise is true. So x belongs to S is true. Okay, so we know that x belongs to X. So we can conclude that x belongs to S. So we have a direct proof here. So the conditional statement x belongs to S implies x belongs to S is true for an arbitrary x from the domain. And hence we can conclude that using universal generalization, we can conclude that for all x belongs to S implies x belongs to S is true. And that's how we prove the entire set is a subset of that set. Okay. So we have seen A is a subset of B concept. What it means to say that A is a subset of B. So what it means to say that A is a proper subset of B. So we say that A is a proper subset of B. We omit the equality symbol from how we denote a subset. Okay, and that's how we represent A is a proper subset of B. And so A is a proper subset of B means that A is a subset of B. That is for sure. But A is not equal to B. That is sure. That's when we call A as a proper subset of B. So it must be the case that there exists an element in B which is not in A. Then we call that A is a proper subset of B. In other words, using quantification, we can write it as for all x belongs to A implies x belongs to B, and there exists x such that x belongs to B and x does not belongs to A. That should be true. Then only we can say that A is a proper subset of B. So two sets A and B are equal if and only if they have the same elements. Alright, and which implies that for all x belongs to A if and only if x belongs to B. It should be true. Then we say that A equal to B. And in another words also we can say how A is equal to B. So if we prove that A is a subset of B and B is a subset of A, then we know that A equal to B. So A equal to B if and only if A is a subset of B and B is a subset of A. This is an important point. Okay, think about it. So we know that A is a subset of B, which means that every element of A is an element of B. And we also know that B is a subset of A, which means that every element of B is also an element of A, which means that A is equal to B. Okay, so if you see, a set can also have another set within it as a member of that set. So for example, consider a set A which contains phi, set A, set B, set A, B. So there is a mistake here. It's not 0 in that set A. It's phi actually. So I have written it 0, but it is actually phi. So now consider another set B which has elements such x, set of all x such that x is a subset of the set A, B. Right. So B is represented using set builder notation. So we have to understand that here set A is same as set B. A equal to B. Okay. So now another thing to note is that here the set A is an element of capital A set, right? Because the set A itself is a member of the set capital A. Now the A itself is not an element of the set A, because A is not an element of A, but the set A is an element of A. We have to understand that difference. Here the member is not the single element A, but the set A is the element of the set capital A. Alright, and now what is a cardinality or size of the set? So it means that the number of distinct elements present in the set. That's what is called as the cardinality of a set or the size of the set. For example, consider a set S, which is a set of odd positive integers less than 10. So the cardinality of that set is 5, as it contains only 5 elements, and exactly 5 elements, which are 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. And what is an infinite set? A set which is not finite is an infinite set. For example, consider the set of positive integers. It is an infinite set. That's an example for an infinite set. Alright. So next we see what is a power set of a set. So what do you mean by a power set for a set? So the set of all the subsets of a set, you consider that set, and that set is nothing but the power set. Okay. So for example, consider a set A which is having elements 1, 2 and 3. So A equal to 1, 2, 3. That's the set. Now what is the power set of A? P of A. What is the power set of A? Power set of A is a set of all subsets of the set A. Now what are the subsets of the set A? Set A has set 1 as its subset, set 2, set 3, set 1, 2, set 2, 3, set 1, 3, set 1, 2, 3 and 5. So they are the subsets of the set A, and you represent that within a set. Now one thing to note is that if a set has n elements, number of subset that set can have or that set has is exactly 2 raised to n. And so the power set of that set has 2 raised to n elements. That's one thing we need to note it down. We have not proved it. We will prove it using our counting methods that we'll see later on in our course. Alright, we have not proved it. We have just stated it but have not proved it. We will prove it in the later part. Now look at what is a Cartesian product. Alright, so far we have seen only unordered collection, right? Now set is a discrete structure which is unordered collection of objects. Now here Cartesian product means that, so we have two sets. Suppose we have two sets A and B. The Cartesian product of A and B, denoted by A cross B, is a set of all ordered pairs. Now there is ordering. It is not unordered. Now we are talking about the ordered tuple A comma B, where A belongs to capital A and B belongs to capital B. So in other words, we can write A cross B as the set of all A, B, such that A belongs to A and B belongs to B. We will look in detail about Cartesian products and other set operations in detail in the next lecture. Alright, so after the next lecture we will see about functions.